When you get to know yourself, you can finally change yourself.
Yes, indeed. Recognize what you want may not be what you need.
One of the biggest misconceptions is that it's selfish when you focus on yourself. But here's the thing. When your life gets better, everyone in your circle gets better because of you. So don't you want a better life? Okay, there is another question I want to answer that Kim and Sarah asked. And this is probably time for the last question that I have. And it was really good. So Kim said, I had a situation that happened some time ago where I was misunderstood about my feelings. Oh, and my feelings weren't validated at all. I feel like now it's too late to talk about it. But as an Enneagram 4, it's hard to just be okay of feeling misunderstood and moving on. Not that I am still super upset or have any ill feelings. It's just a feeling of being misunderstood. And now I have to be okay with it. It's an achy feeling. Any tips? Okay. And Sarah had commented saying she totally resonated with this. So yes, definitely have tips on this. For a type 4 being in the feeling triad, your emotions are very big, especially with how people perceive you. And being misunderstood is one of the worst things a 4 can feel and experience. And so what you have to do is really discern, is this something I was misunderstood about that's a big deal that really does need to be addressed? And I need to go back and have this conversation. If it's something that you can move on from and you're like, you know what, it hurt my pride, it hurts, but it's not a big deal. It's not a misunderstanding about a big value I have or something that puts my faith in a weird position in someone else's eyes or was a bad representation of Christ. Those are the things I would choose to look at to see, is this a big enough thing that I need to go back and address? If it's something where it's just oh man, someone thought I was rude because I said no to having coffee with them, and that sucks, but it's not my responsibility to go explain my entire schedule and why I'm so busy and why I can't have coffee with them. That's where you as a 4 have to do the deep work to move on emotionally. So earlier in the training, when I was talking about my struggle with family and taking things personally and needing to move on and giving myself an end time, that is really helpful when you are struggling with emotions involving another relationship, feeling just misjudged. It's you choose to move on. You're I've prayed about this. I've journaled all my thoughts. I've gotten my emotions out. I've talked it to a trusted friend, someone who speaks truth to me, not venting, but someone who's pointing you toward truth. I've talked this out. There's nothing else I can do in this situation. You have to put an end date and end time to it and choose to have a backup plan of so what are you going to do when that temptation comes back in your head? Because guess what? It's going to come back up. You're going to think about that person again. You're going to feel icky about it. But if you have a default worship song you sing, something you start speaking over yourself, turn on self-talk, the one specifically about people pleasing, whatever it is, create a game plan so that it's no. This is trying to come into my mind, but in the name of Jesus, no, there's not room for you here. I already dealt with this thought. I dealt with this emotion. God, I trust that you're working in that person's heart. It's okay that I'm misjudged. And one of the most empowering things to me is to look at how misjudged Jesus was. It's insane to think about how he died on the cross for all of these reasons that were false, essentially. And he had the vision, the greater vision of what he was here on this earth to do, that he was able to overlook the insults. He was able to overlook the immaturity of the people around him. And when you and I are at a place of maturity, spiritual maturity in our life, we can overlook those insults. What my family says about me shouldn't affect me as strongly when I am so secure in Jesus. But when I'm battling with that, yeah, it hurts because my identity is wrapped up in that. As much as I hate to admit that, there's truth in it. So do that deep work, Kim, Sarah, anyone else who relates with that, do that deep work to understand what is that fear or achy feeling? What is it rooted in? Are you finding your identity in what people think of you? And if so, how do you get real with God and work through that? I know it's so easy to wish we could just get over things within 5 seconds, but sometimes it takes 2 weeks, 2 months, a year. to work through it. But if you stay committed to humbling yourself and doing the deep work to get real with God, to figure out, why does this hurt so bad? Why am I so wrapped up in my image? How do I surrender this? How do I continue to release this? That's where freedom comes in. And then if it is something that you do need to go back and talk with someone, I really believe it is never too late. Like, this is really fascinating, but my boyfriend from when I was like 14, 15 years old, I don't even know, I had like a year and 9 months ago had been like having weird dreams and just felt really unsettled about actually the way I handled our relationship, and was kind of feeling this fear of like him turning away from Jesus because of me. And it was so awkward to have to like tell Kramer, and I felt annoyed I was even bothered with it. But I literally 10 years later had to write a letter to this dude, not wanting to have communication or like further on this conversation, but basically just surrendering and saying like, hey, I'm sorry for this behavior. Anyways, my whole point of that is like, it's never too late if something is heavy on your heart, or you were misunderstood, or you were in the wrong, or whatever the situation is. If it's someone you're close to, just go communicate with them. But you don't always have to be understood by people. That is not biblical, in the sense of God is not like, hey, you need to make sure everyone understands your motives. People are gonna misjudge you. And that's why God says to seek to find God's approval over man, because finding man's approval is going to prove to be a snare. It's exhausting. It is so exhausting in order to always make sure people are okay with you. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done that so much and I hate it. It's just this never-ending cycle, and you can't live effectively that way. So continue to release that. And if there's more questions around that question specifically, I'd love to dive into it more, potentially on our rapid fire Q&A next month, because that is a real topic that a lot of us struggle with. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video today and choosing to just give me a little bit of your time. If you enjoyed this content, you can find more of this Enneagram talk, self-development, talking about Jesus, and living with intention on my podcast called Living Enneagram. You can search Living Enneagram or my name on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you're like really wanting to grow and bring out more potential within you, I have a free training that I would love to invite you to. What we do in this training is talk about how to get unstuck, how to understand yourself so that you can really create a life that you love to live. And that free training is just linked down below in the description, and I hope to see you there.